Yo, we good. Yeah, we live now. Yeah. Yeah, man. You can hear me good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Word up, word up. I got my good brother. Everybody, welcome again to another episode of the Boot Up podcast, vlog type, whatever. We just streaming media, you know what I'm saying? I got one of my OGs on here,
Yes,
a
sir.
YOG, you know what I mean? A young OG. Big Mike
Yes, sir.
Lawson, you know what I mean? We're gonna give him a round of applause, man. You know what I mean? Representing, representing, man. This brother's an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? He's a Morehouse graduate. You know what I'm saying? Representing Los Angeles, Atlanta. He's bi-coastal with it. You know what I'm saying? So this brother's definitely bringing a lot of
Absolutely.
experience to the game. So we just gonna soak it up and just learn from the brother. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure to be on your platform, my brother. What can I say, man? Just blessed to be here, man.
Word.
Blessed to be here. I need to tighten up my light over here in a second, yeah, man. I think the last time we spoke, bro, we were just reconnecting. For the people, for the listeners and the viewers, man. Me and this gentleman right here, man, Mr. Cook, man. We go back. What's this? 22 years, man.
Man, time
A
time
long time.
flies, man. Yeah, dang. 20
Still
20
here.
years?
I ain't gonna lie, man. Back then, I didn't think I'd be around 22 years later. I had that mentality. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So man, what a blessing, man. But yeah, man, me and you connected back in
Like
fall of 2001, Du Bois
2001.
Hall,
Yes, sir.
Morehouse campus. You feel me?
You was on the second floor, I think. You was on the
Yeah,
second floor.
the building was weird, right? Because technically it was the second floor when you come in the building, but it
You
was
was
really
really
the
the
third
third.
floor, though.
Okay. And I was
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
dungeon. They had me in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
dungeon.
yeah, that's right. I remember you. Heck yeah, man. So yeah, man, what a blessing to still be around and still be able to work in the community and man touch the people who need it the most. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily about who needed the most, but touching anybody is important, right? But
Facts.
yeah, man,
Making a
I
difference,
think
making a difference. That's what we striving to do.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think part of what we were talking about before was how I kind of did a similar type of work that you're doing when I was living in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I moved back to LA in 2016, but then I came back to Atlanta in 2020. But in the time in between, though, I was working for a nonprofit in the Crenshaw district and connecting young people with internships, paid internships, and job development opportunities, right? And helping these young people get more career minded
Mm-hmm.
rather than a job. Anybody can have a job, right? And
Yeah.
nobody's knocking that. However, our young people need to be more career focused, whether that's having a trade or being an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole culture of I'm a boss, everybody's a boss, and I'm a boss, I'm a boss, I don't work for nobody. Yeah, that's like an urban myth. That's an urban legend. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not built for leadership type positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be. We just got to embrace that.
Word.
I think they don't really teach entrepreneurship in the schools, and I think because it's only 10 out of I think 100 people are really going to be dedicated entrepreneur leadership minded people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think over time they'll teach this to our young people. But as a black community, wealth is all developed behind business ownership at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
right? That if when you got families who, and not to, I'm not putting anybody down, but we're just talking facts. If your parent is, even if they're a professional, a lawyer, a doctor, um, you name some type of professional career that pays well, well, when your parent passes away, which we know, unfortunately, for those that have already experienced that, um, I feel for you, and for those who haven't, you have to know that day is going to come, that time is going to come, right? So
Mm-hmm.
can that parent can't pass down their job,
Mm.
right? They can't hand down their position that they carried at that time,
Mm.
right? On the flip side, though, as families, we need to understand that we can pass down a business, right? We can pass down assets, resources. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And That's very important. And our young people, some of them get it, most of them don't because they listening to the music. The music is raising our kids nowadays. And I honestly, I think we was kind of seeing that in our generation. We 80s babies, we, what I'm saying, came of childhood age in the 80s, really came with essence in the 90s. And so really the whole gangster rap movement, we the first generation to really come up under that, to be honest. Well, actually, I think maybe the guys a little bit older than us, the guys that came up under like NWA, you know,
They are like the
Ghetto
originators. They're the
Boys, and
originators. They're originators. But we
right,
definitely were influenced as youngins that was like start to get normalized. You know what I mean?
right.
You brought up a good point about like how a lot of youth grow up and they're told like, "Yo, I want to be a boss. I want to run my own company. I want to be the head honcho and all that." And it kind of sounded like you were saying like, there's steps before you can to be a true entrepreneur. Like there's a natural
Oh yeah,
hierarchy. Like, you
oh
know what I
yeah,
mean? You gotta be like you gotta
for
learn how to
sure.
be a good follower as well. You know what I mean? Could you speak a little bit to that? Because I was building with a young person yesterday, and that's exactly what he was saying. Is like he wants to be a boss and be an entrepreneur, and you know. And I think that sometimes we think that that's the only way to get to the bag, or that's the way to get to the biggest bag.
Right.
And I mean, I know you're an entrepreneur, but I'm
Oh
sure
yeah,
it was a
man.
journey for you to get to that position where you can actually be the head, the HNRC. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think on a to address the first thing you said, um, or what I was trying to say is number one, everybody's not built to be a boss. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say built, maybe that's not the wrong word, the right word. Everybody, um, everybody has a role to play, and they need to understand it, and they need to play that role, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We all are, I believe, we're all born with a skill set, a talent, a gift that we need to cultivate over time, right? And we need to just that's a whole health self discovery existential conversation to have, right? But in a nutshell, we all have God given whatever you believe in. We all have given talents and abilities, and we just need to figure that out and cultivate that. Some people, like I said, everybody has a role to play,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're talking about a business or an actual physical machine, there are so many parts that make something work, right? And so, whether you're an executive level position player or you're an engineer working on a line, uh, creating the machines that the company sells or whatever, everybody has a role to play. But we got to stop putting down people who have a job, have a 9 to 5, work for somebody else. Like this whole notion of like, oh, I'm a boss. You work for somebody, so you're less than me. That's complete BS because the reality is, and any entrepreneur will tell you, entrepreneurship, if people are being honest, is often harder than having a job
Mm-hmm.
because really, essentially, now you're working for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's your job now.
Mm-hmm. You only
So,
gotta get out what you put in, and a lot of
absolutely.
times you gotta put in so much on the front end before you can even start paying yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people don't even people take for granted the fact that I have investments in restaurants and real estate, so that's what I was always using as an analogy. But restaurants in particular, you can open up a restaurant today, but it might cost you $250,000, $500,000, $1 million. You're not going to make that back overnight,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
people walk into a restaurant that looks beautiful, the decor is tight, the music is just right, the lighting is perfect, the design, the whole feng shui is lit,
Mm-hmm.
the food is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a dollar amount that went into making all that happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
might see a restaurant full of people and thinking, oh man, this restaurant owner is balling out of control. They're killing it. And it's like, yeah, in a sense they are because their business is cash flowing, but it might have cost he or she a million, $2 million to create this experience that you're enjoying right now with your
Mm-hmm.
girl, your homeboy, your wife, whatever. Right. And I'm kind of getting off track.
No,
But
it's good, man.
at the end of the day, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, entrepreneurship. Right. I tell you all the time. I've just been a very entrepreneurial type person since I was a kid. It's just in my DNA, right?
Right.
Like I just back I grew up in Ladera Heights in LA, and we lived right off of Slauson, and we lived two houses down. We were the second house from the end of the block, so naturally there's a lot of traffic, people hitting our little corner. And so I was like, man, I need to sell. A Sunday, people always coming through here at the church. I need to sell me some lemonade. That would be a nice little lick. I'm like 8 years old thinking like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, say all that to say, um, what I've realized now, about to be 39 this year, is that there are a lot of people in business just for their ego. They got ego investments, right? You have some people who are in business so they can be the person to say that they are in business. Oh yeah, I own that restaurant, or I own this business, and the whole backstory I just gave on the whole, spending a million or two to open a restaurant, and seeing it packed full of people, it doesn't necessarily mean you're making a profit. Is the point that I was trying to make,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day,
Yep.
so
It might take you.
um,
It might take you 3 seasons or 4 years, five
that's
years
it.
just
That's
to
the point I was
just
trying
to
to
get
make,
into the black.
exactly, that's the point I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to make, and I got sidetracked. That for a successful business to thrive, meaning you have now recovered the money it costs for you to start this business and operate this business,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're actually making a clear profit. It takes years to accomplish that. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to your point that you also made, is that everybody has to start from somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my first opportunity working in a restaurant business, I was what year was that? This is 2000, right before matter of fact, this is the summer right before
You came to
the summer I
Morehouse.
ended up meeting you, right
Okay.
before I came to Morehouse. And so the it was my uncle Adolph's restaurant on Kizzy's back porch in Marina Del Rey. And so I worked there during the day, pretty much, or in the evenings every day. But then I also worked as a teacher's assistant at this school, the Center for Early Education for students dealing with autism and other speech pathology issues.
Okay.
So I had two jobs that summer. And
Getting it.
actually, no, I'm sorry, Emil. No, this was actually the summer after our freshman year. So this was '01. No,
Okay.
this is this is summer
Summer of
'02. So
'02.
coming before we came back as sophomore. So anyway,
Uh huh.
so yeah, so my uncle Adolph, him and his wife had one of the best soul food restaurants in LA. So I'm working there, but I'm doing like grunt work. I'm working there as the bus boy. You feel me? I'm busting tables.
Dishwashing.
They didn't call it a sous chef back then, but I was in the kitchen, working as an assistant, learning how to cook and just get the whole. I was a dishwasher. Every single job in the restaurant I did,
Okay.
busting tables, dishwashing.
No
I mean, I
questions
didn't even.
asked. Like you can't even complain. Like you just got to get in where you fit in. Like.
Yo, every square foot of the restaurant I understood.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's replacing the paper that goes in the register at the POS system, or
Mm-hmm.
it's putting ice, refilling the ice, swapping the ice out in the machine where the soft drinks are at, finding all the extra styrofoam for to go stuff,
Mm-hmm.
whether in the restaurant in the front of the house where all the guests are, and where the stuff is in the back of the house, taking the trash out, hauling it wherever it needed to go around the block.
Mm-hmm.
Every single little thing um, I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't understand at the time. I kind of knew, but I didn't understand the gravity of what I was experiencing
Mm-hmm.
at the time. And then also I was exposed, and I always was exposed to, thank goodness, to people involved in real estate ever since I was a kid. So
Mm-hmm.
I always had people tell me, look, people are always gonna need somewhere to live, and they're always gonna need something to eat. That's just
Mm-hmm.
never gonna change,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what the circumstances in the world is happening. People gonna need shelter, and people gonna need food, and somebody gotta provide that. Period.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm working at the restaurant, it was very, reflecting on this 20 years later, it was powerful because it really shaped my understanding or my perspective on adulthood and just life. And I come from a middle class background. Both my parents are Harvard educated. So I had the luck and the blessing of having educated parents, but growing up in LA in the 80s and 90s and having family who were in the streets, And so still being exposed to the streets to understand what is out there if you really want to go there, but also being exposed to black excellence and the opportunities that are in abundance as well, right? So I had the
Mm-hmm.
best of both worlds, but um, got sidetracked again. What was I trying to say?
Now you was saying
Um,
like you didn't realize it at the time, but while you
oh
was at the
right,
restaurant, you was
right. So I'm working at the restaurant, and one of the cooks was a guy. He's probably like maybe 15 years older than me at the time, and he owned real estate, and he owned like apartment buildings, and he used to just lace me with a whole lot of game about, man, you know, this on top of my uncle Adolf, the owner of the restaurant, who also invested in real estate and bought buildings and was into. I didn't even realize that at the time, but anyway, the chef is just lacing me with game, just telling me like, look, man, you know, you buy a building, you buy it for this amount of dollars, you got 10 units, you lease them out. You know what I'm saying?
that's gonna
After
cover the
you
mortgage.
after you cover the mortgage, the insurance, the cost to maintain it, unforeseen circumstances, yakety smackety, you know, you could walk away with a couple grand a month, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and you duplicate that 4 or 5, 6 times over. Now you're looking at 50, 60K a month net profit. Times 12, you're looking at a $500,000 in income. You know, people say it's passive, but it's a lot of work if you get your hands dirty, right? But anyway, so and this is I'm what 18, 19 hearing this at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, boom, I take all that knowledge and that energy with me back to Atlanta. So the whole time I'm in Morehouse, I'm thinking real estate. I'm thinking buying property in the West End. I'm thinking student housing. I'm looking at all our homies who stay in this house. It's
Mm-hmm.
got 15 rooms in it. They all paying $500 to $600 or more.
Mm-hmm.
That's 7,500 a month at least. You know, I'm looking at. I got savvy with the internet and looking up records on the house. See, the house is paid off. Some guy's dad passed this on to him. The house is free and clear, no debt attached to it.
Wow.
Okay, so you know, and 7,500 is keeping it light.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, you still have some of those properties in and around the school that are pulling in. I would say they might be netting, you know, $5,000 to $7,000 a month, right? Like I said, most part of that times five. Now you doing 30, 35, 40K a month in income.
Mm.
Now, true enough, you got to pay taxes and all that, but the beauty of business ownership is every time you spend your money on the business, it's a tax write off,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not like you are an entertainer and you get paid $1 million to do a show and you owe the IRS 500,000 of that.
Mm-hmm.
So really, yeah, you bragging about you just got paid $1 million, but you really just got paid 500,000.
And that's not even like you gotta pay your manager and
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
You
all your
know
other
what I'm
staff and
saying?
team. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. And so young people, circling back to this whole conversation of, you know, employee versus boss, everybody's an employee at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
whether you work for yourself or you work for somebody else. Everybody's an employee. But more importantly, and I learned this from one of the most prolific entrepreneur. He goes by entrepreneurial activist. That's his title. Kareem Webb out of L.A. One of the
Look them
I
up,
want to
y'all.
say yeah I want to say the first um, black Buffalo Wild Wings franchise owner in their system in the Buffalo Wild Wings system. He's got a couple of those in L.A. Several franchises. Just prolific guy. But you know, what conversations I've had with him over the years is just about like, how are you adding value at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
How
We
you
we
added value?
all the young people need to just if they understand anything, that's what it's all about. Whether you go to college, whether it's trade school. My neighbor down the street is a plumber. Oh, you know, I used to tell my youngsters in LA all the time, like I'm educated. I got a college, I got a degree from Morehouse, I got a master's from Mercer, but I'm an entrepreneur, yakety smackety. But I also know that you don't need all these degrees and all this paperwork to get after it.
Mm-hmm.
What you need is a skill.
And you said that before because you said everybody got a God given gift or a God given talent. Everybody got something special. So the young people that's out there listening, I think that that's it's like an undervalued thing. You know, we don't really spend the time to uncover what's our skills. And too many of our
Oh
young
no.
people, they're just told like, oh, this society and the media and even our own communities and families just kind of push us towards sports or push us towards,
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
limited variety of opportunities that's out there. And really like there's so many skill sets that the young people listening, even the elders that's listening, people our age that's listening that we have, and it's like we don't necessarily know that those skills are valuable, that they can become profitable.
Man,
You know what I
listen.
mean?
Man, you just said a whole mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you're absolutely right. And social media has killed that in so many ways. Social media has just broken down just the human spirit in so many
Mm-hmm.
ways, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for one, it's giving these young people this misconception, this whole, I like to call it this microwave world they live in, where you think you can just put something in the microwave, blast it for 30 seconds, and then it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they look at life. So they see somebody with a nice car, they see somebody with all the material trimmings, and they got it overnight. And somebody might have gotten it overnight, but
Mm-hmm.
the number of people who have and the ones who keep it over a long period of time is slim to none.
Keyword keep.
Right, right. You
Yeah.
know, and so um, the reality is, man, our young people they want things to happen so fast, man. They want things to happen overnight, and they don't have the mentality. A lot of them don't. Not all of them, but a lot of these young people don't have the mentality of understanding it takes time to cultivate things that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if you want to be in the streets and have a wad full of money, like all the guys on YouTube and social media and all these channels be having, and drive a Corvette, you might be able to accomplish that for 6, 8, 9, 10 months, a year, and you would. But the deeper conversation is our young people have such low expectations of themselves
Mm-hmm.
that having a little bit of money, smoking some good weed, hanging out at the club, driving a nice car is like the peak of their life.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, because there's a lot more to this whole
It's
experience.
so much more to
Yeah,
life than that.
there's a lot more
you
to that.
know? And I think, and that's, and like
You
I
think
said, I'm
they
not
got to
trying to
get it
push.
out their system? You think they got to get it out their system and then they'll realize that, or
Yeah, I think so, man. I think that like my mother always says, man, you gotta know better to do better,
mm-hmm,
right? You gotta know better to do better, man. So I don't really knock the young people who are a product of their environment.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
They're a product of their family system.
mm-hmm,
They're
right,
a product of their local school. They're a product of family dynamics that go back generations. Not to say that you can't. Um, what's the saying they always say? That you can't break the mold, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, like my mother, for example, my mother grew up in rural South Carolina, where your street name is your last name. To
dang,
this day, my grandmother's house is on a dirt road. You feel me? Rural farm. Like I had the experience, blessed. Like I said, man, I remember 5, 6 years old going out to the chicken coop getting eggs. You know what I'm saying?
that's what's up.
Real. But
That
my mother
history,
grew
that
up.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? But my mother grew up. 6 brothers and sisters. Father not in the picture. Rural South Carolina. Very little resources.
mm-hmm, but pushed all the way to Harvard.
But my mother mashed on the gas
Uh huh.
and was an outlier. It is an
Mm-hmm.
outlier. Fast forward in time, her and my dad were instrumental in getting President Obama elected.
What?
That's a whole nother conversation for another segment. But I just tell that story to say that just because there are a lot of people who are products of their environment, but that doesn't mean you have to be a product of your environment,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we all are in terms of just the whole nature nurture conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But where were we going with before we got into this?
Man, just speaking on how, dang, I'm losing my train of thought too. Um,
Right, because it was you're talking about this subconscious low expectation that these young people have.
yeah,
So they're not thinking, and I can really speak to this because I was that guy.
yeah,
Even having two Harvard educated parents, being exposed to successful black entrepreneurs in Southern California,
mm-hmm,
um, going to getting into more household experience. But guess what? When I was 10 years old, you talk about childhood experiences that cement us in so many ways. When I was 10 years old, that's when I first witnessed a shooting, a murder. Saw a
mm-hmm,
guy shoot another guy in the head at point blank range.
mm,
I don't know what it was over to this day. I think about it quite often, but I'm like, but that experience really framed my understanding of the world at
mm-hmm,
that time as a
mm-hmm,
10-year-old boy. Like, all right,
mm-hmm,
look, when I get older, nobody is gonna catch me slipping
mm-hmm. That can't be
because
me. Yeah.
that can't be me. And
Mm-hmm.
then on the flip side, I
But it
always thought
could
to
be
myself,
you. Like, yeah.
more than likely it will be me. And
Mm-hmm,
so when you start thinking like that subconsciously, your thoughts determine your outcomes, and but before your thoughts determine your outcomes, that your thoughts influence your behaviors, and your behaviors determine your outcomes
mm-hmm,
at the end of the day. So if you're thinking negatively, you're going to behave in a manner that reflects the way you're thinking, and then that behavior, you're going to see consequences from that,
mm-hmm.
good or bad,
Right.
right? And so it sounds like some Disney Channel shit, but I used to tell my young people all the time, and it was kind of crazy because I couldn't have the some of my students I was able to have a much more deeper conversation with. Some I couldn't, but the point is, um, our young people got to understand that how you think frames your behavior, and your behavior determines the outcomes that you get. There's so many different little sayings you can add on
Mm-hmm,
top of it. What you put into it is what you're gonna get out of it,
mm-hmm,
so on and so forth. But it's true. And so even at Morehouse, it wasn't literally, bro, it wasn't until I started my master's program in 2011. So I was 28 at the time. It
mm-hmm,
wasn't until I was 28, 29 years old that I realized, like, wow, I've been really struggling with post traumatic stress. And it's really been holding me back in just my mentality and everything, because I'm going to keep it real. And I'm at a point in my life, just entrepreneurially and just as a man, where I feel like telling my story is valuable to these young people. And we got to come out of the shadows and really tell the truth to these young people. But um, going back to your thoughts, your behaviors, your outcomes. As a 10-year-old boy, I see a guy get shot and to give you background, bro,
mm-hmm,
this wasn't like your parents say, hey, man, don't go down that street or stay off of that corner. Shit be happening over there. Stay away.
mm-hmm.
No, we were on a school field trip, bro.
Wow.
This was some lunch at the park, at Westchester Park. The school me and my brother went to at the time for summer school was over in the Westchester area. This is like one of those neighborhoods that is, matter of fact, it's the last neighborhood you get to before you get to the beach in that little area. It's
Mm-hmm,
Westchester, and then it's the water.
mm-hmm,
So this is not like, we're not talking like east side of LA, Manchester and Broadway in the trenches, anything can happen type shit. No, this is
mm-hmm,
it's supposed to be safe. So long story short, on a school field trip, Westchester High School is down the street. Some people circle up like they're gonna fight, and then two guys in the middle look like they're gonna fight. So I'm being nosy and I'm watching. A lot of people not paying attention, but I'm 10 years old at the time, so I'm very inquisitive
mm-hmm,
and observant. One of the dudes that they about to fight, or looked like they was about to fight, dude pulls out a little revolver and shoots the other guy in the head. Boom,
wow.
just like that. So that experience,
Everybody breaks. Like,
everybody breaks the whole nine.
what
That
the teachers
experience,
is panicking and everybody's panicking.
everybody's panicking. This is a little small school we was at, so we wasn't even on a school bus. We just all masked up in different teachers' cars and all that. So people running back
Mm-hmm,
to the car, leaving all that shit behind. It was ill. But that experience framed my way of thinking for the next 18 years, And
mm-hmm,
so even when I got to Morehouse, I'm from California, spent too much money on the tree freshman year. I said, oh, well, I'm finna get the tree out here. And next thing you know, that whole situation takes on a life of its own.
mm-hmm,
And now you in the black market retail cannabis space, to put it
Mm-hmm.
politically correctly. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Taking risks that I had no business taking,
Right.
putting myself in dangerous situations I had no business putting myself into,
Right.
and being around people that I had no business being around.
Right.
Right. And but all of that, I did that and was comfortable and energetic about it because of this mentality of, well, one day I'm gonna be shot and killed anyway. So I'm gonna just enjoy it while it lasts.
Real talk. It's that fatalism. Like, yeah,
Oh man,
yeah.
100%, bro. And so our young people gotta, luckily for me though, you know,
They're
the
constantly
blessing,
fed that too, bro. They like when they're scrolling on their screens, like they're fed that. You know what I mean? To think
they're
about
fed that.
all the heroes all their hip hop heroes and different people that they like, even in the last 4 or 5 years, like how many of their artists just have lost their life? You know what I mean? Like,
Yo, when Nipsey Hussle was killed, it was, we all met as a all the guys who gave a damn in the
mm-hmm,
community met up and talked about that, how like that's just soul crushing for these youngsters, man. You
mm-hmm.
know,
And it's not even
um,
like the youngest really wasn't like Nipsey biggest. They wasn't his biggest group of fans. His major
right,
demographic, and you know he appealed more to, you know, young men that's our age, you know, down to the, you know, kind of forward thinking, entrepreneurial young men. But like the kids is watching King Von pass, and you know
right,
the Dolphs, and
yeah,
you know what I mean,
yeah,
and even the Ex Tentacion, and you know what I
yeah.
mean. Just too many young people. I mean, and there's a laundry list of artists that lose their
Pop
life.
Smoke,
Pop Smoke, you know what I mean? Like it's unfortunate here in Pittsburgh they lost the
Draco,
Draco, right?
Slim 400. The list goes on.
Yeah, it goes on and on, man. Jimmy Wapo, you know, it's like it's unfortunate, but this like leads to that fatalism, that like not valuing life and feeling that life is can be snatched from you at any time. So why put yourself in that long game, right? You know what I mean? Why bet on a long shot when nothing is for certain, right? You know what I mean? Your
Right.
life could be taken at any moment. So it's like
Well,
that leads to us making those poor
well, man,
decisions. You know what I
you ain't
mean?
lying, man. But you know what? And I'm glad we're having this conversation in the
Mhm.
month of May because it's mental health awareness month, right?
Mhm.
Because the reality is that's why so many of our young people, just people in the black and brown community, need counseling and need therapy because you know, therapy is not like TV and the movies where you go in there and you talk to some guy or some gal and they give you all the answers and the wisdom to life and they send you on your way and your whole life is better.
Mhm.
It doesn't work like that. The any legit counselor or mental health therapist of any kind will tell you it's all about really listening to people, right? And
Mhm.
most people who are having some kind of deficit in their life, no matter what it is, and not even I'm not even talking economic. We're just talking they're not happy with life. Period. Most people go through life not feeling heard, and that can be frustrating. That's why people
Mhm.
riot. That's why shit gets burned down.
Mhm.
Right? People feel like they're not heard. They not nobody's listening to them. Nobody's paying attention. So therapy, number one, is beautiful because it's a place where hypothetically and how it's supposed to be is you can have a confidential conversation with somebody who's completely neutral, right? Who's not against you or for you. Well, they're for you in the sense that they're your therapist, but in terms of their perspective on you, they're neutral,
Mhm.
right? So this whole concept of we talk to our homies, we talk to our family, we talk to people that we know. Yeah, it's great to talk to people, and we got to encourage that. Getting the conversation started is good, but the advantage of having a therapist is talking to somebody that legally they cannot share any of that information. Number one, so whatever you tell them outside of you about to go smoke somebody, they gotta legally step in if you making threats and all that.
Right.
But like threats on somebody. If you
Right.
just say I'm gonna go, I feel like killing somebody today, then you're not gonna go to jail for anything like that. But um, outside, excuse me, outside of making threats on a specific person's life, everything you tell your therapist is confidential.
Mhm.
And it's such a burden to get lifted to be able to share your story with somebody who is actively listening and cares about what you're talking about
Real talk. Real
and is
talk.
not going to judge you. You know what I'm saying? It's the whole non-judgmental listener. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
powerful right there, and it's very underrated and taken for granted. And so, number one, we when we talk about that fatalism, we all got to get some therapy in our lives, man.
Real talk.
We need that. You know what I'm
And
saying?
it ties into that other point you was making about like how your thinking leads to your behavior, and your behavior is gonna lead to like whatever outcomes that you're gonna have. So if you're not getting therapy, you're not really getting a chance to even objectively like reflect on your thinking. Like, you know what I
Yo,
mean?
absolutely. And so yeah, and so that's number one. The power of therapy is being heard and being appreciated. And two is a therapist. It's not what they tell you; it's the questions that they ask. Right? A really good therapist is going to ask you questions that you just let into. Is going to ask you questions that are going to have you reframing your own perspective. They're going to have you rethinking the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this whole one of the things because I didn't actually. I mean, I saw a therapist for a split second as a kid, but they were a joke, so I just played them and it didn't go nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started my master's degree, we all have to engage in therapy while we're studying, mental health and counseling. And so it wasn't until, my late 20s, bro, where this whole mentality, because guess what? Now I'm in my late 20s. I've lived this very unique life where I'm a middle class kid. I went to Morehouse. I finished in 4 years, but I kind of played around the streets a little bit. I had
Mm-hmm.
a tree. I got myself into some situations that thank God I was able to get out of, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
here to and I live to tell my story. But now I'm in my late 20s, educated, but still have these symptoms of post traumatic stress, not getting a lot of sleep, you know, constant hypervigilance. We
Mm-hmm.
in Georgia, so it's legal. So keeping a gun on you at all times, always ready for a situation to pop off, and just
Mm-hmm.
the whole lifestyle that revolves around hypervigilance.
Mm-hmm.
People who know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it wasn't. Long story short, it wasn't until I got into therapy, and I forget his name. Man, he was because he was also he was a PhD student doing his practicum hours,
Mm-hmm.
as a therapist. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Well, people always talk this whole doom and gloom, this whole fatalism."
Mm-hmm.
But he said, "Well, what if all of that doesn't happen though? Then what?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's so true. It's like you have this negative outlook and expectation your whole life,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're watching your peers pass away. You're watching you're a victim of violence. You're a witness to violence. You've got all this
Mm-hmm.
trauma,
Mm-hmm.
but now somehow, by God's grace, you live to be 30, 40 years old, but you never really tried to accomplish anything because you always thought death was around the corner.
Mm-hmm. That's deep, bro. That's deep.
Man,
We like,
what?
yeah, we obsess on those situations that like validate or prove that life is so bad.
Oh yeah,
Instead of looking for the opportunities to see like everything's gonna be all right, you're gonna be fine.
man.
Like,
And guess what?
man.
And I caught this from my pops just on a deeper level, just as a kid. I think my parents and just I think people in my family just experienced a lot of loss, and so I think I just stumbled into this mentality. But like, and my pops and he's still around, but I think he was just being cynical and being funny. But it's true, like everybody's gonna pass away.
Mm-hmm.
That's like one of the few constants in life.
Mm-hmm.
He used to always tell me as a kid, like you always gonna be black, and you will die.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not funny, but when you talk about this whole doom and gloom, um, like you said, finding every little thing in life to validate the negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but never really understanding that anything can happen at any time. But I think it's like some Buddhist thing. I don't know where it originated, but it's like um, also something that I was told in therapy that you know live for today, but plan like you're gonna live forever,
Mm.
right? So even me as an entrepreneur at the height of my real estate investment, I had 7 properties. Me and my brother are joint venture owners at 12 restaurants at LAX airport. I got a master's degree in science and clinical mental health counseling. I have this new company I founded called Cannabis Media Collective, educating people on cannabis wellness.
Big up, big
Um,
up, big up, big up.
right,
Round of applause, all them
I'm a
accomplishments,
I'm a
man.
Morehouse graduate.
Word up.
You know, I have the unique experience of being educated, but also being in the streets, seeing friends of mine killed over an ounce of weed, a quarter pound of weed, a pound of weed, or whatever. Seeing friends go to jail. Got a cousin doing life right now.
Mm-hmm.
Got a very. It's taken me now almost 40 years old to realize that I got a kind of a unique experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at the end of the day, um, even though I was blessed to accomplish all those things, I still could have gone so much further had I not had this negative focus mentality and attitude about life. And I'm 38 years old. And some young people, as we all know, don't make it out their teens or make it past 21 with
Mm-hmm.
that kind of, attitude. But you circle back, we kind of got off
Man,
track.
you
But
speaking life though. You speaking life into the listeners, and you speaking life into me, and I'm sure you even speaking life into yourself, man.
oh man,
Because we got a
100%,
lot more living to do. You know what I mean? And we got to make
100%.
sure we get that message out to the young people. Like, be optimistic about your future, no matter what the circumstances might look like on the surface. Like, look for that silver lining.
Yo,
Look for the positive thing that's happening in your life. Look for those positive people that's out there. You know, look at what you can learn from the environment
absolutely.
that you're in. You know, just and keep believing in the positivity that's out there and the blessings that's gonna come your way and that have come your way.
Yes,
You know what I
sir.
mean? So I appreciate you sharing all that. You know what I mean? Because you got me thinking and being reflective on my own self too. Like, and I definitely can relate to a lot of your similar. You know, I feel like we have similar experiences and a similar unique perspective at
Absolutely.
our age, you know what I mean? But I feel like we still got so much to accomplish. And, you know,
Absolutely.
the wisdom that we've acquired to get where we're at, that's what's going to take us far and allow us to reach a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, bro. And you know what? The last thing I want to leave with the young people that
Mm-hmm.
I was actually telling one of my homies this the other day. He was kind of getting down on himself and his
Mm-hmm.
situation at work. And the reality is, when you talk about entrepreneurship and talk about owning a business and wealth and all that, that's the wealth conversation is important to have,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you're talking about instilling hope in young people, you got to give young people something they can hold on to, like tonight,
Right.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
something they can walk out of your building with, like right now, and say, man, you know what? Let me think on that. More importantly, let me take action on that, right? Because people say knowledge is power, but knowledge is not powerful if you don't take action
It's the
with
use
whatever
of the
knowledge you have.
application of knowledge. Yeah.
The application of knowledge is powerful.
Right.
Knowledge itself is just knowledge.
Right.
And so, but the reality is, one another thing I learned that was powerful for me when I was studying counseling is that when you talk about, it's one thing to talk about success, right? Because you have some people who are 7 figures in the game. They can look in their debit account, their debit card. They got 7 figures in there. They can spend whatever they want,
Mm-hmm.
and they still find themselves unhappy. They jumping off a bridge, a cliff, a building, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, man, this person had it all. Why were they so miserable?
Mm-hmm.
Well, come to find out, man, happiness in life, and they've done studies all over the world about this, and the consensus seems to be that happiness really revolves around the work that you do. It's not about the money that you make. Some people are blessed and they millionaires and they trillionaires and they way up in the stratosphere. And we see and technology has messed the game up because now all those people are so accessible. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we were growing up, there were billionaires and people with money all over the place,
We
but you
just
just
didn't
didn't
even
see them.
know
There
them.
wasn't
Yeah,
social
we didn't see
media,
them,
well, the
man.
internet wasn't popping like that.
You couldn't just Google somebody and find out their net worth.
Yeah,
Like if you people, like when you put somebody's name in Google, that's like the next thing right next to their name is
yo,
like
that
net
we
worth,
didn't have that.
yeah, or wife. Like yeah,
Right,
yeah.
exactly, bro. And so come to find out, man, because when you think about it, I always break it down like this. It's 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, no matter where you at in the caste system and the socioeconomic spectrum,
We all get
everybody get the same
that
24
same
hours.
24.
But guess what? A healthy night's sleep is 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That leaves you 16 hours left in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us who are not trust fund babies or ultra wealthy have to earn some kind of living.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, unless you were in China and you work in 12-hour shifts, and we wonder why everything is made in China, and we want to complain about it, but then don't nobody want to work no 12-hour shift out here on as a regular.
If they don't love what they do, you know what I
You
mean?
understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So let me back up and get before I get distracted. 8 hours of sleep, 16
Mm-hmm.
hours left. 8 9 hour workday. That's 7 hours left in the day.
Mm-hmm.
When you calculate an 8 hour, 8 to 9 hour workday over the course of a week, month, year, decade, your lifespan, we spend the majority of our life working.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't enjoy what you do on some kind of level, more than likely you're gonna be miserable.
Real talk.
Period.
Real
So it's
talk.
not this whole also not only are we living in this microwave generation and this whole Instagram social media world, which has just ruined humanity in my opinion. Um, we also living in this whole chase the bag. I want the bag, this bag. And I get it. I'm a middle class guy, so I'm aware of my blessing in the situation where I didn't have hungry nights. I didn't have the experience of not having resources and knowing
Mm-hmm.
what that feels like. So, and I respect that. I'm aware of that. However, as Black people and people of color, period, I think just historically we've gone without for so long that as soon as we come within grasp of it, we get tunnel vision and get focused on it.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole chase the bag, yeah, the bag is cool.
It ain't gonna solve all your problems. It
But
ain't
the
going. Yeah.
bag, if you talk to anybody that's been successful for
Yeah.
more than 5 years,
Yeah.
they'll tell you, guess what? As soon as the money comes, you're gonna find yourself having problems that money doesn't solve.
More money, more problems. You
You
know, Biggie
understand
said
me?
it.
You get hit with that health scare
Mm-hmm.
that it ain't no cure for, and now
Right.
you got all this bread, and now you watching your health deteriorate. You're dealing with like
Facts.
real life shit like that. You
Facts.
know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Money doesn't solve. Money solves a lot of problems, but it don't solve all of them. And so the reality is, the study, going back to what I was saying, the study showed, bro, and at least in the U.S., that the median income for like being comfortable and happy was like 60K.
Mm-hmm. And that's achievable. You know what I mean?
And
That's
that's more
achievable.
than achievable. But more importantly,
Like,
our young people need to understand, man, that there's hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you just got to keep going.
and I
You
love
might
it.
walk out the building, you can be cynical about it. Man, I could get hit by a bus when I walk out of here. Yeah, you could. Or you could live for the next 40 freaking years complaining about how you could get hit by a bus and it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And now 40 years then pass you by,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been miserable, you've been upset, and you haven't lived life to the fullest. So at the end of the day, we gotta transition our young people out of this chase the bag, yes, the bag is important so that you can pay your mortgage or your rent and have a car and a place to live and food to eat and a lifestyle and all that. Yes. But if you don't enjoy what you do,
Yes. And that to me takes us back to that point about everyone got a gift and a talent. So you
you
gotta
gotta
chase
chase that.
that which is within you. And the only way to
Yes.
unlock that is to try new things, is to explore your
Yes.
talents and gifts and get uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
now we got these technology tools and access to information that you can develop new talents and skills, and you're not dependent on institutions to develop your talents and
Talk
abilities. You
about
know
it,
what I
man.
mean? So,
Woo.
but it's like
Woo.
if you don't take ownership and take the reins on the technology will have you, in that dopamine loop where you're looking at, other people's lives. You're looking at other people's
Oh yeah.
success, and and then that's fueling maybe your feelings of insecurity and lack,
Oh yeah.
and now you trapped in that cycle where you're not taking action. But
Oh yeah.
or comparing yourself and seeing what you don't have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Worry about what you do have.
Man.
Worry about who you are, and how you can be a better person today than you were yesterday, and how
Man,
if you
that's
keep
it.
at it you can be even better,
Yo.
you know what I mean, a week from today, in a
Yo.
month, in a year, like, you know what I'm
Yo.
saying.
It's so crazy you said that. My boy Eric Henderson, shout out. He's the D line coach for the Rams, world champion.
Yep, I
Uh
saw him on your IG. I think I seen him with Aaron
that's
Donald. Yeah,
that's my
yeah, yeah.
boy, man. Just super accomplished guy, but just a great, solid guy to begin with, right? Georgia Tech grad, New Orleans native. But they got this quote in their office at the Rams in the coaching office. It says, "Either you getting better or you ain't."
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Like
That's it.
straight up.
That's it. It's only one way.
Either
It's
you
only
getting
one or
better or
two
you ain't.
ways.
And
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter what you do in life. Like I used to hear my father always mentor the young lawyers that would come to the crib and he'd have a drink with. I didn't know they was drinking at the time, but they'd sit at the little bar and they have a drink and chop it up.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, even these guys were in undergrad before they were even in law school. And
Mm-hmm.
he used to talk to people in college, tell them like, first of all, just do what you. He told me this, and I did that. I majored in English. I like to write. I like to read. It came easy to me. I didn't choose no complicated ass major and be there
Mm-hmm.
5 6 years and all that shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he said, man, choose something you're good at, right? If you can't figure out something you're good at, choose something you like,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then just cultivate that over time. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, bro, whether you're a plumber, whether you're an HVAC guy, an electrician. I got homies getting money doing all the things I just mentioned. Some are entrepreneurs, some are not. My boy Chad is a commercial. I don't know the exact terminology, but he's an electrician. But he does these huge commercial jobs where he
Getting
travels from
big
state to
contracts. Yeah.
right. He travels from state to state. Matter of fact, they just flew him out to Delaware. He lives in California. They just flew him out to Delaware to do a big job for a couple of weeks. And he might be in Seattle, and he might be here or there. Each one of these jobs, he's making like $10,000, $12,000.
Mm-hmm. And traveling and
Man, right?
seeing the
Traveling is
country,
paid. You
making
know what
more
I'm saying?
connections. Probably
He's
getting,
not he
yeah.
he's not an entrepreneur. He's not no big dog CEO. I'm a boss and all that. But in the young vernacular, he's getting after the bag though.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting after it. He's not no CEO. He's not an entrepreneur owner.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then I got my boy Sid lives down the street. Got Sid sewer and drain. You might see this man at the grocery store. He look dirty. He got the whole plumber situation on and all that. Bro got his own plumbing company.
Mm-hmm.
He's a millionaire off of plumbing. He's got contracts with the school systems,
Mm-hmm.
commercial contracts with various school districts. He's got
Mm.
um, drivers on salary.
Do
He's
what
got
you
a big
love, you know what I mean?
house.
Do what you
His wife's
love.
got his wife's
Do
got
what
a
you're good at.
SL Mercedes drop top.
Mm-hmm.
Wife has the Range Rover extended because he's like 6'6". He's a big guy. They
Mm-hmm.
got the big Range Rover. He's got the F-150, the F-650 for the heavy machinery. He's got the Ram 1500 just to drive around. And his wife has the old ML. Like they got a whole like
They got a
off of
fleet.
plumbing.
Yeah. It's
But we
real
want to
though.
look. But the common culture of today will look down on this guy when you see him coming through the grocery store or walking by you, or people being real judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
But this man's P&L is looking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This man's balance sheet is looking crazy.
But if he spent all his time looking at other people and yeah, like other forms of success, and like only having tunnel vision on a couple careers and a
Man,
couple
listen.
ways to get that outcome, it's like you can't really focus on the outcome. Like you said, just focus on what you're good at and everything else will work itself out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man.
Like
How
life
how
is
do
a
you add
journey, you know what I
how
mean?
do you add value, like on a deeper existential conversation,
Mm-hmm.
which I think people get away from because we just live in this technological world now,
Mm-hmm.
is how do you add value to the world around you at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Like me and you, we add value by talking to these young people. It don't
I
matter if we
love it,
talk
man.
to it don't matter if we talk to 1,000, 10,000, a million of these young people. If one or two of them
That's it.
internalize what we are saying,
it means everything. You know what I mean?
It means everything because now they're gonna turn around, they're gonna impact somebody else,
Mhm.
And so uh, the reality is, man, um, each one teach one, but we gotta have, we gotta understand how do we add value to the communities that we live, reside, and spend our money in.
Facts. That's what it is, bro.
It ain't rocket science.
That's what it is. So all y'all listening, man, think about what you can do that adds value to your community. Develop those skills and talents. You know what I mean? That's word from my brother Mike out in you in GA right now.
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta right now, bro.
You want to tell the folks about your latest venture, which is the
Oh
Cannabis
yeah,
Media Collective.
absolutely, man, absolutely, man. So as you know, we've been going on for a minute, so some people might have heard my background. I have a excuse me.
We really should have
Uh,
started with that. I didn't do a good job giving you.
oh no,
Yeah,
it's all
yeah, it's
good,
all
man. We
good.
yeah, we just jumped right
Yeah,
into it,
we'll
man.
have to we'll have a couple of these sessions. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely. We'll make sure on the front end I give the background on the front end. But yeah,
Hmm.
so got my bachelor's in English and minor in sociology from Morehouse College, class in 2005. Um, Invested in some real estate, invested in some restaurants at LAX airport. Went back
Major.
and got my master of science in clinical mental health counseling in 2014, Mercer University, Atlanta campus. And so my background is I'm also a licensed school counselor. Worked in the community and juvenile justice as an MST therapist. That's multi-systemic therapy. So I have a clinical mental health background, but I've always been a cannabis kind of connoisseur pretty much my whole adult life. But until recently, with the whole paradigm shift going on in the nation, many of us educated academic intellectual types who use cannabis have had to be in the shadows with it
That's
and
true.
so on and so forth.
That's
And
true.
so my new venture, Cannabis Media Collective, is an education platform really trying to elevate cannabis wellness into this its proper place,
Mm.
right? And really educating and exposing the science behind cannabis and how this plant is medicine and how this plant is an asset to us, and how this plant can generate generational wealth. We talk about the whole wealth conversation.
Hmm.
Our young people are all caught up in the culture of smoking, dispensary ownership, and cultivation. Now, true enough, there is no industry without cultivation, but as young people, and as particularly in our community, we need to get educated on the vast opportunities in this cannabis space
Speak
outside
about
of
it. Yeah.
cultivation, dispensary ownership, right? Our young people need to understand that we need accountants, we need bankers, we need engineers, we need scientists in biology and molecular chemistry and genetics
Mm.
and so on and so forth, right? We need architects to design new ways to cultivate and new greenhouses and new grow
Hmm.
houses. We need designers to design new spaces for people to produce content and advertisements and marketing. Everything that we see in all sectors of business is applicable is applicable in the cannabis space. But they're not going to tell our young people that,
That's real. Yo,
right?
I'm
They're
glad
not
you're
gonna tell
saying
our
it,
young
man.
people that. They're exposing all the kids who are in private school and Ivy League school. They're exposing them to all of this,
Hmm.
and our young people are still sucked into their phones, sucked into pop culture, and vaping and smoking and just being as usual consumerism.
Hmm.
They just want us to consume, consume, consume. They don't want us to create and
Yeah.
own, right? And so CMC, Cannabis Media Collective, is all about educating not only the young people and consumers, but also on a deeper level, educating our professionals in the criminal justice, in medicine, because believe it or not, we have people even in medicine who are not familiar with cannabis medicine and the cannabis science as well as they should be,
Hmm.
right? So when you go to your doctor and you tell them, hey, I've been using this tincture for my pain, or I've been using this edible for this, that, and the other. They should be educated enough to have a intellectual conversation about cannabis wellness without having to call you back and it get weird,
Right,
right?
right, right, right.
Not to mention, you talk about criminal justice. We got our young people, especially in the southern states, and it crushed me when I was working in DeKalb County, where you got young people who are, some of them are just smoking weed to get faded, true enough. But
Hmm.
I would argue a lot of our young people are smoking cannabis heavily because they're dealing with mental and physical trauma,
That's real.
right?
That's what
And
it
so
is.
it's absolutely criminal that we're going to send a young person to prison or jail for a probation violation for a positive urine screen for cannabis because they can't stop smoking or they can't make this mythical 30-day uh, clean window myth that's not accurate. We can't criminalize our youth for smoking cannabis when they're using it medically. That's another whole
Right.
premise of my philosophy is we're all using cannabis in a medical way. That's a whole nother conversation, right?
It's deep,
Um,
man. You making me think about how, like, even as an educator, a lot of our youth are, like you said, they're using marijuana as to help them cope with different things. They're using it,
oh, absolutely.
in these types of ways, but there's no professionals out there that's actually teaching them the proper ways, like, to go
Man,
about it, and not to use it as not to become dependent on it, and to use it
absolutely.
properly. You know what I mean? So it's like, because it's so stigmatized and it's been historically stigmatized to talk about it, then it's left for the youth to just be on their own with it, and then
Absolutely.
you know
Absolutely. And so,
without guidance. So this,
man,
yeah, this that work is important, bro.
absolutely, bro. We have a whole generation of young people, and I would even say us included. We're not young
Hmm.
anymore, but even our generation, we just had to figure it out.
Yeah,
We didn't have any professionals giving us guidance on how to move in this space.
it's real.
And so over the years, that this is also a pandemic, baby. So when our airport businesses were really slow, I had time to focus on something else and going back to doing what we passionate about as a husband, a father of two small kids, 24 hours in a day, um, and only 16 hours to get after it. I always told when the pandemic hit, I told myself like, look, I don't mind going and working for anybody,
Hmm.
but if I work for somebody else, it's going to be doing something that I love doing. And if I don't work for somebody else, I'm still going to be pursuing something that I'm passionate about that I love.
Hmm.
And that was cannabis. And so I just said, you know what? I'm going to take a leap of faith and get out here because I realized that, like you just said, man, so many of our young people and our professionals and adults and even our parents and elderly, the demographic is far and wide. People don't have guidance on how to move in this space from educated intellectuals because we've had to hide all these years. Oh no, I don't smoke weed. Oh no, I don't use cannabis. Oh no, I got a drug test coming up. Oh no, I got to stop smoking. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, like and that whole paradigm is over. Well, not completely over, but we've seen a major shift. And so I said, you know what, man, let me jump out here and being that I've been in this space for 20 some years and I have the experience and I'm willing to
You're
to
courageous. To be courageous,
and
step
be
up.
courageous and expose
Word up.
myself,
Yeah.
but for the betterment of other people. And guess what?
I love
I'm
that,
going it.
man. I love that. I love that energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
Like, yo, we
real.
we, we gotta boot up, man. We gotta really, like, step
Yeah,
out there
boot
and
up,
be who we supposed to be who we are. And if
man.
they got a problem with it, they can just bring it straight to us.
Man,
Cause we
listen,
can't operate from a place of fear.
man, listen. One thing I learned from
Going
old
back to
mentor of
all that
mine,
trauma, right? Going back to all that trauma,
man. But
and moving through life with this uncertainty, like, oh, something bad's definitely gonna happen. Nah, we can't move like that no more.
man, you listen, man. One thing I've learned about life is that when you're trying to be great or you're actively doing something great,
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be some discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always gonna be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a LA native, so Kobe's one of my idols. But you know, Kobe's always say like, dude, some days you're gonna win a championship, and you're gonna need to embrace that feeling and that energy. But some days you're gonna take that L,
Mm.
and you're gonna lose. But the one common denominator between the two, no matter if you win that championship or you take that L, God willing, you wake up the next day, you got to do it all over again, regardless,
Mm,
every day,
mm.
day in and day out.
Just love that process, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier, like loving what you do and do, you know what I mean, and doing what you're
Man,
good at.
when you love what you do, it's not hard.
Hmm.
It's like I was putting it's so many little gems, right? And I was putting together my kids some furniture from IKEA. And I remember old mechanic used to always tell me like, look, when you banging on something and you're trying to put some stuff together and you're banging on it, you're not doing something right because it's not supposed to be that hard,
Hmm.
right? And so when you're banging your head up against the wall, you're not doing something right. You're skipping a step or you're skipping too many steps.
That's real.
You
You
know what
gotta
I'm
slow
saying?
down,
Slow
figure,
down.
slow down and figure it out. Look at the instructions, chill. Don't be in
Slow
such a
down.
rush. Yeah, that's another
And
thing.
another gem, I know we could go on for hours. I'm gonna let you go though. For these young people, man,
Hmm.
it's like, and I'm seeing this as a grown man, and I get deep with it, and even I'm even having to share this with my wife. Like, mentorship is crucial. Nobody's making it happen on their own out here.
That's real.
Some people might make it a little ways, but everybody got a little nudge along the way. Everybody got a little game along the way, whether they want to admit it or not. you know. And it doesn't mean mentorship doesn't mean somebody got to take you under their wing and you got to go live with them and stay with
Right.
them and do an apprenticeship with them for 90 days, 180 days, a year. No, it means having a relationship with somebody who cares about you excelling in whatever it is that you do, but also having somebody who's older, wiser, more experienced, more accomplished to give you a roadmap on how to move. Now,
Hmm.
in life, you're not going to be able to have that. Like, for instance, I'm in this cannabis space. I'm pioneering in the space where I don't have anybody who's excelled at what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
Like my concept, I'm one of the first to try to do it, so I'm gonna have
Hmm.
to figure it out. But I can get advice. I can have people nudge me, guide me, and stand on other people's shoulders to get where I'm going. And that's so crucial that if you really look at Malcolm Gladwell, one of the great authors,
Hmm.
he has a whole list of books, but Outliers is one of my favorites where he basically breaks down how and why some of the titans of industry are where they at and how they got there. A lot of it's historical, family background, what time in history you're born, the whole nine, right?
Hmm.
But a lot of it also has to do with just putting in the work. Like people put in work, man,
Facts.
over time, you know, and young people need to understand that over time you gotta have somebody you can lean on for expertise, for advice, for wisdom, for information. And you got to slow down. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And
Like you get up, like you said, whether you win that championship or you take that L, you gotta keep getting up and keep doing it. So
just keep
just
getting up,
stay at
man,
it,
and
stay
try to
at
be
it.
better than you were yesterday, man.
Word up. And be patient with yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Be patient with yourself and commit
Yeah.
yourself to that process.
Yeah, it's a whole laundry list to the whole rollout, right? Setting realistic expectations, right?
Hmm.
That's what will keep you from having meltdowns and always being disappointed. You got to set realistic expectations for yourself.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
That way, if things go better than planned, like that's just an extra
Hey,
benefit, extra
you
blessing.
shoot for
Yeah.
the stars, you land on the moon,
Hmm.
right? Um, but I had a funny reel. I forget the guy's name. White guy, music producer. He's real popular all over TV. But he's got a
Hmm.
little reel where he always talks about you got to show up if you want to get it done, man.
Facts.
The first key is showing up.
Facts.
That's why when I used man, because I was working in the trenches, bro. When I was working for Brotherhood Crusade, we were right there off of Crenshaw and Vernon, which is kind of like the almost a border between you got the Rolling 60s over here, and you got 40s over here, you got Crenshaw Mafia over here, and you got Inglewood families a little further down.
Hmm.
Then on the east side, you got Rolling Hunters and East Coast Crips. So it was a lot going on right where we was at,
Okay.
and so I always respected, even when I was a school counselor working out in Georgia, but I always respected the young people who at least show up. Because if you showed up, that means something.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't just walk up in here for no reason.
Facts.
We can get psychological. You either came in here for the bare minimum, for just shelter, survival, and a meal, or you came in here with the expectation that you might get something valuable in here.
Real talk.
And that's my job, is to give you something that you can walk out of here with that can help you in some kind of way at the least, and at best they can change your life. So showing up is key. So shout out to the young people showing up,
Word up. Shout out
listening
to the youth,
to this
man.
content,
Yes.
following you, listening to you.
Man, shout out to you, bro, for showing up
Man,
and dropping so many gems and sharing your story, man. We went a lot of different places, from mental health
man,
to
listen,
some
I got to, man,
entrepreneurial
because
stuff. You know what I
I,
mean?
I got to, bro. Because the only reason I'm here is because somebody dropped some gem in my ear.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Period.
No doubt. And I'm sitting here soaking up game from you. And, for the listeners and the viewers out there, go ahead and follow the Cannabis Media Collective. Go ahead and follow my man Mike Lawson on
Oh yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Let me give
let's
out
get
all
them
the handles.
drops.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. IG, find me on IG at Lawson. That's Lawson like it's spelled, SLAUSON. Then my company, Cannabis Media Collective, that's underscore CM Collective underscore. I do a lot of educational content. The website is cannabismediacollective.com. We're gonna be doing a huge rollout on that later on in the year. But that's all about cannabis wellness, um, mental health, education, educating consumers, professionals, and industry leaders on cannabis science.
And we
Um,
and boot up. We're gonna get into that as well. So we're gonna learn from you and see how we can take that knowledge and that booming industry and show our young people some extra opportunities that's out there and directions that they can
Absolutely,
go. Thank you, brother.
absolutely,
Thank you, brother Mike, for dropping so many gems and just for being a brother. 20 plus years, man. You know what I mean? And it's great to reconnect. And I'm just inspired by everything you got going on from your background with real estate and what you're doing with the entrepreneurship with the LAX and you know what I
man.
mean,
Thank you, bro.
and the CMC. So just keep
Thank
it
you,
up,
bro.
man. And then it's funny how we got so many parallels with mental health counseling and working with young people. So please, man, just thank you, bro, and let's just stay linked up, man.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, let's get another one on the calendar. Let's figure out a new topic that you want to tap into,
Word up.
and as often as you want and as often as we can, man. I look forward to it, man, because I think we have some very valuable information that these young people can use.
Facts. Facts. Appreciate you, Mike.
Always, my brother, man. Until next time, man. Be cool.
You too,
Boot
bro.
up.
Peace. Boot up, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.